Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about the Seas with Nemo and Friends in Disney's Epcot. Now, clearly I am coming to you guys after dark this week, but I could not be more excited to experience this attraction with you guys. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about theme parks and anxiety, we talk about sensory issues, and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider like I am. Now, the Seas with Nemo and Friends is such a fun little ride, and it's really great for a lot of riders of all ages. Now, that being said, of course, there are a few things that we need to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive into those details. This undersea adventure contains claustrophobic elements, some potentially scary characters, and the potential for motion sickness. Now let's start off by talking about those claustrophobic elements here. Now, the Seas with Nemo and Friends is actually very similar to a lot of other dark rides you may have ridden all across Walt Disney World. If we're talking the actual ride system, it's really not that much more claustrophobic than any other dark ride, at least on paper. However, I do think there are a few things that make it stand out. First of all, we have an underwater theme here. Now, this is very, very similar to what we'll see over on Journey of the Little Mermaid in Magic Kingdom. And even though the actual queue and the actual ride are not all that confining, having that underwater theme, the props, the mood lighting, and things like that can really make you feel like you are underwater. Of course, with Disney, everything is super, super immersive and everything is themed to the nines. So this underwater theming to me does kind of lend itself to feeling a little bit claustrophobic, but that will definitely just depend on you individually. Now, on top of this theming, we are also pretty darn close to the show scenes on this particular attraction. Like I said, it's really not much different from other dark rides you may have come across, especially in Magic Kingdom, but we do find ourselves just a few feet away from all of these show elements that we're seeing on this ride, which depending on the person can feel a little bit confining. Now, moving right along, let's talk about the potentially scary theming. Now, this of course comes in the form of a few menacing characters we may encounter along the way. Overall, the story of the ride itself is not scary, it's not really action-packed or anything like that, but we will come across these characters during the ride's runtime. First off, of course, we will come across our shark friends, Bruce, Anchor, and Chum, and even though they are not necessarily villains, they can definitely appear a little bit threatening or maybe a little bit ominous. This particular scene with the sharks is very brief. Bruce appears only on screen, and even though he does have that big booming voice, he really doesn't do anything that is too frightening or too menacing, at least in my opinion. Now, the only other scene here I would look out for is featuring the anglerfish. Now, this guy was out of commission when I filmed, but he's basically just a puppet on a mechanical arm, as you can see from this footage. He does make some kind of scary noises and is easily the spookiest part of this ride. However, like with all the other scenes, this one is very brief, and it's a particularly easy one to just close your eyes as you go past it for a few seconds and then carry on with the ride. Now, last but not least, let's talk about that potential for motion sickness. Now, this ride is interesting because there is no spinning, there's no crazy maneuvers or anything like that, but we do have one segment that involves a long tunnel surrounded by rushing visuals. Of course, again, this will depend on you individually, but this particular section is supposed to simulate the EAC, or the East Australian Current, so we of course have bubbles, we have turtles, and good vibes rushing past you during this particular scene. Now, this slightly overstimulated tunnel scene lasts for approximately 1 minute, so it is for sure the longest scene in the entire ride. Now, of course, this is not meant to be scary. It's really not supposed to feel intense or anything like that. But even for me, as somebody who does not get motion sickness, I definitely find this segment a little bit disorienting and it makes me feel a little bit dizzy sometimes. Now, let's talk about those ride vehicles. So what we have here are the classic Omnimover clamshells. These are going to be very, very familiar if you've ridden Journey of the Little Mermaid. Now, each of these clamshells seat 2 to 3 guests each, and of course we have no ride restraints of any kind. Like I said, these guys are very similar to doom buggies or the clamshells from the Little Mermaid, and like with all other Omnimover attractions, you will need to step onto a moving belt before stepping into the clamshell, which can feel a little bit wobbly or a little bit disorienting. Of course, there are accessibility options, so be sure to talk to a cast member if that might be something you need. Now finally, let's talk about the ride duration. The Seas with Nemo and Friends actually actually clocks in at 4 minutes and 10 seconds, which is very standard compared to other dark rides in the parks. This ride to me even feels shorter than that. It really has a very quick pace. The show scenes themselves are very brief, and it's a very fun, very entertaining ride, which of course time flies when you're having fun. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually go hop in line. Now this is a walk-on today. We just had a big thunderstorm. It cleared a lot of people out of the park, so we're just gonna be able to walk on this thing together. I'm so excited, so let's go hop in line. You'll find the entrance to this attraction in the Seas section of Epcot. Now this particular ride is connected to the aquarium that you'll find here, so of course if you have someone in your party who doesn't want to ride, this is an excellent place to go and relax and watch the fish while you wait for the rest of your party. Now if you do enter the queue, the first thing you will come upon is a small outdoors section. This area is very, very brief, and before you know it, you'll be making your way inside. Now the majority of this queue is indoors, which of course means you have that lovely AC. The theming of this particular queue and attraction, like I said before, is very underwater themed. So we start out among the sand dunes. We've got some cool props, some really amazing sound design, which really makes you feel like you are on the beaches about to go underwater. Now I love the theming of this queue, and it's such a short wait time usually that you don't really get to spend a lot of time in here, but I'm always in awe every time I come. We have this beautiful light coming down that looks like it's filtering through the waves. Even the little barriers that are blocking off the queue are themed to look rusted and like they've been underwater for quite some time. And you might even spot a boat or two above you. Like I said, even though the queue itself is not really claustrophobic, the ceilings are high, it's really not a confining space at all, I do find the theming a little bit intimidating if you are claustrophobic like me. Now after winding through this underwater section, you will finally find yourself at the loading station. You'll come upon your first cast member and they will send you onto the moving belt so that you can hop onto this Omnimover attraction. Now once this ride sets off, you'll find yourself in these beautiful coral reef environments. We'll come across Mr. Ray, Nemo, Marlin, and Dory, along with so many of our other fishy friends. And overall, like with the rest of the ride, it's very happy, it's very upbeat, and a very family-friendly attraction overall. So after we pass through this coral reef section, we will come upon jellyfish everywhere. These guys are so beautiful to look at least for me, and you'll see them hanging above you and all around your ride vehicle. After passing by these jellyfish, we will come upon that anglerfish, which again is easily the scariest part of this ride. Now if he is in motion, you'll see him flying around chasing Marlin on this motorized arm. Now I will say that he is down very, very often. This animatronic might just be a little bit temperamental, but I would say he's only been moving about half the time that I do this attraction. Now after passing our anglerfish friend, we will come upon Bruce and the other sharks. Again, these guys are not particularly villainous, but they can be a little bit intimidating. We've got that booming voice, the sharp teeth, and I could definitely see this section being a little bit spooky. However, right after the sharks, we will find ourselves in the EAC in that slightly disorienting segment where we have bubbles all around. Those rushing visuals can definitely cause some motion sickness, I would say, for some people, but overall, it is still a really fun time and an exciting segment overall. Now, after wrapping up in the EAC, we will end up in the actual aquarium section here. I always loved this particular segment because we get to see our friends, the characters that we all know and love from the movies, projected into the aquarium itself. So we see real fish swimming around behind our friends, which is so cool to see. And of course, we get that famous song that will be stuck in your head the rest of the day. After this segment, however, the ride does come to an end and you'll find yourself right back at the unloading station. A cast member will direct you off and you'll exit through the aquarium. So be sure to stop by, look at the fishes, and take a look around because it is beautiful. And there we have it. What do you think about the Seas with Nemo and Friends? This ride is definitely overlooked by so many people, and it's really a very cute, very fun, family-friendly attraction. Of course, like I said, it definitely has some propensity to be a little bit claustrophobic, a little bit spooky at times, and can even cause motion sickness for some people. But I want to hear what you think. Don't forget to let me know in the comments. I love hearing what you guys have to say about each and every attraction. Now, of course, as always, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next